Okay, why don't we just start with, tell me a bit about yourself at the time you volunteered to go to Afghanistan. Like, what were you doing in the unit? What were you doing on the civilian side?
Well, on the civilian side, I was pretty much just out of high school, maybe a year or two out of high school, and was pretty much training to be an electrician at that time. And on the military side, yeah, I was like 2 or 3 years into the military because I joined while I was in high school. And that's about it. I was just a new guy pretty much. I got 2 promotions a week before I left to go to Edmonton for workup training. So I was still a private when I applied to go over.
And how old were you?
When I went on workup, I was 19.
Okay.
And I turned 21 the year I got back, I think. So
what was the attraction at the time? Why did you volunteer?
it was like so many people. Well, when I first joined, the recruiter was like, there's going to be a big reservist brigade going overseas in 2009. And I was like, sign me up. I wasn't really thinking. I didn't know much about Afghanistan then. But I knew I was going to be signing up to go. And I pretty much researched and kept an eye on everything that was going over there. And we had a few guys from the unit who did a tour or two before us. So they came back with awesome stories. So I wanted some cool stories too, I guess.
What did your family and friends think at the time when you told them what your plan was?
Well, most of my high school friends, they didn't agree because they're like from Bosnia, and they moved back here when they were kids, and they went through all the war and stuff over there. But my family, they didn't really know what was going on till I was pretty much ready to move to Edmonton for workup training. So I kept them pretty much in the low. Didn't really want to tell them much.
Just didn't want to. Why is that?
Just didn't want a big deal about pretty much what I wanted to do. I didn't want anybody to be like, yeah, you're just going over there to get rid of your family or something like that.
So was there a time when did they find out what you were doing or what you had done?
Well, I don't think they really knew. I was actually planning on going there till a week before workup training. I told my parents that I was going, and I never really lived with them after that, like before that either, so we never really kept in contact much, so. And they live here in Medicine Hat too, so.
So there was never any kind of like big scene with them as a result?
No, not really. They found out I was going and they had to scramble to get family photos and stuff like that done before I went. And while I was overseas, they were pretty supportive. I tried talking to my family once a week, but that never really happened most of the time. So,
at the time you went, how many of your fellow soldiers from here went with you?
From this squadron, there was 3 of us. And we, the 3 of us, we did high school together, and we joined the unit together and decided to go over together. But they separated us when we were out there, so it was kind of a mess.
So what was your intention? Was your intention to join the reserve to go to Afghanistan, or were you thinking at the time that you joined that you might stay in the reserve for a longer period of time?
Well, I was hoping to stay longer. And, well, before I joined, I really didn't know about Afghanistan much. And I joined and then found out that they were sending people over there too. So I wanted to go.
And would you say in the unit there was there a kind of peer pressure to deploy at the time?
Not really, no. There wasn't much.
So tell me about your workup training. What did you do when you got to Edmonton?
Well, we got to Edmonton in February 2009, I think, and it was kind of a mess when we first got there because we had to go to base to be assigned quarters to live in. And they were like, yeah, we don't have space for you guys on base. We rented a hotel for the whole 9 months you guys are going to be there so you can live there. It's like, perfect. It's like a vacation pretty much. And our first day at the battalion was kind of a mess because we weren't told here what platoon or company we were going to be with. So we had to find important people to find that out. So we pretty much missed our first day we pretty much missed the welcome parade, kind of. trying to find out where everything is and what we're doing.
And then once you started your workup training, what sorts of things were you doing?
Well, I was mainly slated as the OC's driver for NSE, National Support Element, and I was pretty much just hanging out with a bunch of guys from BC and their Force Protection Platoon, and they were telling me how kind of boring that the OC's driver is. He never really lives the base or anything, so they pretty much adopted me as a driver for them, and I never really left. Like 2 weeks before we went overseas, this OC pulled me in and they're like, yeah, the platoon you've been hanging out with, they pretty much want you as a driver for them, so you're going to be with them the whole time.
And what kind of vehicle are you driving?
When we first started, we were training in G-Wagons. Actually, our whole workup training was in G-Wagons, those Mercedes, four-seater pretty much, with a guy on top. But when we were overseas, we jumped into Lavs and RG-31s. We had training courses before we left as drivers too, and gunners.
So when you look back on your experience, how adequate was your workup training? Did it prepare you well for what you had to do in the end?
Oh yeah, I would say they were pretty hard on us on workup. That's pretty much why we all did our job, I wouldn't say perfectly, but did a great job overseas, because they were so hard on us on workup. Like, I learned so much on workup that I couldn't have done without the 9 months and just go there. It was pretty interesting.
But it's a long time, 9 months to get ready, was that?
I would say 8.5 maybe, because we were in February, then we started in February and we left in, the first group started leaving in September, but I wasn't until late October, so that's not 8 months, maybe 7 months.
Whatever I'm not questioning how long, but whether it was 7 months or 9 months, were you chomping at the bit to actually go and do it by the time you were done your workup training?
Oh yeah, like halfway through, you're like, oh, we've done this patrol practice 100 million times. Well, let's just go do it already. And good thing they didn't send us right away. So they made us do it over and over and over in different parts of Alberta. We were in Suffield for like 2 months doing the same patrols every day. And it gets pretty boring after a while. But when you go overseas and you do it for real, you're like, oh, good thing we did that so many times. Now I know what to do.
What you said you were kind of following the news around the time you volunteered to go.
Right.
What was your expectation? What did you think it was going to be like once you got over to Afghanistan?
Well, when I got over,
But before you got there, what were you expecting when you're here in Canada? What did you think you were getting into?
oh, like you were hear all the news of all the guys dying overseas and stuff, so you think you're getting into something really, really bad. But until you get there and experience a few days or a little bit, it was okay. Like, I know my flight in, it was like we had to circle the airfield for a couple hours because there was a jet crashed on the runway. I was like, oh wow, welcome to Afghanistan. Like, there's a jet crash on the runway. This isn't World War II anymore. Like, how did they shoot a fighter jet down? But it was just a simple crash, I guess.
What were you hoping it would be like? What kind of experience were you hoping for out of your 6 months?
Well, with all my training that we did, we were hoping for a little bit more action, but that was pretty much what everybody wanted, but everything went pretty smoothly, I guess.
So when you say action, what do you mean? What kind of action were you hoping to?
Well, we were trained to face the enemy, so we kind of wanted to. Like, most of the platoon wanted to maybe fire a couple more rounds off in anger, but it never really happened. So
tell me a bit. Just kind of going step by step. So tell me about your first impressions. You mentioned the circle in the airfield.
Right.
What's it like when you finally hit the ground in Kandahar? What do you remember about what you saw, what you smelled?
Well, we landed, I think it was 5 in the morning, and as soon as the C-17 doors opened, the heat just smacks you right in the face. And then it like dust everywhere. It was really sweaty for the first couple hours, and it was only 5 in the morning. So, and the smell, well, everyone will tell you Kandahar airfield has this, what we call the shit pond. So that smell hits you right there too. It's like, man, this country stinks.
And what did they have you do in that first 24 or 48 hours?
We had a bunch of, like we had to get our weapon, zeroed. Well, just test fire a weapon, we never really zeroed it. And pretty much a bunch of briefings. And after, I think, a day or two, they release you to your unit or your platoon that you're serving with over there.
Okay. And so, was it the Force Protection Platoon?
Yes.
You're with? So, what are you doing with them? What's sort of your daily routine once you get into it?
Well, our main job was we worked with one service battalion, and we escorted resupply convoys to all the smaller bases in the Kandahar area. So our main job every day was pretty much service the vehicles, make sure they're ready to go. And when we were out on missions, which is probably every day or every other day, we had to be up at 5 in the morning and get everything ready, but we never really left till 9. So, yeah, that was pretty much our main job. Just like make sure the convoy got where it was going, safe.
How dangerous was that job?
I was told before I went overseas it was one of the most dangerous jobs because you're on the highway every day. Your main job is on the roads, and that's the most dangerous part of the country was the roads, with IEDs and mines and everything. So.
Is that how you found it? Is that what it was in reality?
Pretty much. Well, you get used to it after a while. Your first patrol, you're kind of iffy. You don't want to get out of your vehicle or anything. But after you do it so many times in a week, you're like, oh, this is easy. You just need to remember your training and stuff that they told you. Don't pick up anything on the side of the road or kick anything. And everything, if you do your job, you'll be fine.
Tell me about that first patrol. Like, what was sort of step by step? What was that day like?
I think it was my 4th day in country, and they slated me out for a pretty easy patrol, 2 stops, and I was in the back of our RG-31, just pretty close to the drivers. I think the crew commander wanted to familiarize me with the country and what downtown Kandahar was like. And down in the city, it was just a mess. It was like cars everywhere, nobody listens, always a traffic jam. And my first time out of the vehicle was pretty much in the countryside, and I kind of wanted to get out because it was really hot in there. And I was pretty nervous jumping out of there. I had to watch where I stepped, even though it was paved road on that section where we were at. But it was an interesting first patrol, and after that it just kept going like up and up. Like they send you to more dangerous parts, like dirt roads and stuff, and you'd be driving and you see like all the culverts blown up, like, oh man. And we have to take back roads into the countryside in a minefield to get where we're going because the road's all blown up. So it's pretty interesting.
You said you had to watch where you step. What was the mine threat that you were told about at the time?
Mostly pressure-plated IEDs, where you step in, just make sure you don't have any wires or anything on the side of the road and someone hasn't dug where you're stepping, which is pretty much everywhere. If you're on a dirt road, you never know. And we didn't really have sand, we called it moon dust, and it just gets everywhere, and there's like maybe 2 or 3 inches of it, and your boots get covered, so you don't really know where you're stepping and what's under there. So
the first trip out, you're not driving, right? You're in the back, right? What's it like the first time you're at the wheel of one of these big armored vehicles driving through?
Actually, I only drove once outside the wire because I got slated back down to emergency driver, so which was good for me because I wanted to get out of the vehicle. But my first time out was like, it was terrible because I was nervous because you hear like if a vehicle gets it blown up, the driver gets it the worse. and I was like going way too fast, and the crew in the back was having a hard time. So when we got to our first stop, they're like, "Yeah, you're not driving anymore." So they slated another driver in there who was experienced enough to take over. And I never drove outside the wire after that, which was good, because I enjoyed my job way better, like walking around, being in traffic, yelling at people, than sitting in the driver's seat and just sweating my bag off.
So what's it like? So what's it like being on? I just say. So you're basically a dismount.
Yes, just a dismount.
So you get a so if you're going to secure a scene or something like that, what are you doing? What's your role?
Well, I was the C9 gunner for a while, so I pretty much just, when we were stuck in traffic jam in Kandahar City, all the dismount got out and tried to clear traffic, because we weren't supposed to stop very much in the city. And I was on like VPS teams to search for IEDs and coverts and all that. That's about it. And we did some other stuff too. Well, it's kind of, yeah.
So what's it like dealing with the Afghans, like face to face?
Oh, it's just terrible. Like, they don't know what you're saying. You don't know what they're saying. All they pretty much respond to is a gun in the face and tell them to move. You have to move or you're gonna get shot. That's pretty much it. Like, we had big signs on our vehicles our first few months there that says if you get that close to a vehicle, you might get hurt. And you still have them just ignore it and get as close as they can, which for us is like pretty much a danger zone, because you don't know if there's a VBID coming towards you or not. So,
is there a day, or are there a couple of days that stand out in your memory that as kind of like the most memorable?
yeah, it was New Year's Eve of 2009, 2010. New Year's Eve of 2010. One of the three guys that I left from here with, he was involved in a ID explosion. And we were out patrolling all day. We actually went up pretty far, that I've never been there before. And we were told as where we're going was a pretty dangerous spot. And I seen him at Camp Nathan Smith that morning before I went up north, because that was one of our stops. And we said hi and all that, and we left. We came back, nothing happened to us. We came back at like maybe 9, 10 o'clock at night. And we just parked our vehicles, refueled and everything, and we were in our van, because our compound was pretty far from where we're staying. We're in our van ready to go back to a tent, and we get a call like, "Oh, you guys have to go back out." I'm like, what? We were just out for a long day. And they're like, "Yeah, it's one of the PRT teams got hit." So we're like, "Oh crap," because we're all reservists. We all know people from there too. So we went out, spent the whole night out, came back around 6 in the morning, and I was out for pretty much a full 24 hours. And I was just got in my bunk, had a shower, got in the bunk, and I think I had an hour sleep or so, and someone's knocking on my door like, "Hey, somebody wants to see you in the Roll 3, which is the hospital on Kandahar Air Base. I was like, "Oh, really?" So got in a van, went to our compound, and first question I asked is, "Did he lose his legs?" And the guy in the front is like, "No, he's fine." I'm like, "Okay, that's good." That's all I wanted to know, because we had this little bet going between the three of us, who's going to lose a leg first. It was a terrible bet, but and yeah, I went up there and I seen him. His leg was all mangled up and stuff, and ended up staying the whole New Year's Day with him before he was shipped to Germany. And that's pretty much my most memorable day. And it's going to be stuck with me forever, because he was a really good buddy of mine. We actually were each other's date at our high school grad. And that he lost most of his platoon that day. It was just a mess.
Sounds like this is the day that Michelle Lang was killed, the reporter. Is
Yes.
that day, right? And that
Yes, that was that day.
Highlanders were wounded. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's it? Did you know when they said someone wanted to see you at the Roll 3? Did you know who it was?
I knew exactly who it was.
Okay. So So what was it like? You knew who it was, and you were going into this hospital. I'd never been in the hospital there.
Yeah.
Just describe it. What was that experience like?
Well, our BMQ instructor, because we did most of our Army courses together too. Our BMQ instructor, I think, was his platoon commander, and I knew him. So he pretty much talked to me. He was like, yeah, he's okay. And the rule 3, when you go in, you have to check all your weapons at the door. So I just walked right in, and the security guards had to follow me in to grab my weapon from me. And when we got in, the nurse was like, yeah, he's kind of sedated right now, but he was yelling your name all night. And apparently in the middle of the night, they were at my bunk looking for me because he was yelling my name all night. And I was gone. Pretty much recover in the vehicle that he was blown up in, which was a pretty big mess. So.
And when you saw him, was he awake?
He was half in, half out. Just on a lot of drugs, pins for his legs. It was pretty much a hamburger on his legs. And he managed to put it all back together when he got back here. He walks with a cane and stuff now. But I recently heard that they might have to amputate it. And it's been like 6 years since we've been back. It's like, you guys can do that a long time ago.
What's his name?
Should I say that on camera?
Yeah.
Brad Quast.
So he's from here?
He's from Medicine Hat.
Okay.
But he lives in Edmonton now.
So what's it like for you now, going back to your job after cleaning up, recovering the vehicle and seeing Brad in the hospital? Does that change your outlook on what you're doing there?
Oh yeah, it's being over there totally changed everything. Changed my whole life over. Like, that's pretty much why I'm not in the military anymore. It's because I'm so stressed out. I never really readjusted when I got back properly. So I'm still pretty much in the phase of getting back to a normal life. So that night changed everything for me. It's like you almost lost your friend, and yeah. And he even told me like how he got out of the lab, which was kind of graphic, but yeah.
Do you want to tell me how he got out?
Well, he said the only thing that saved him was his seatbelt in the back. Well, not wearing a seatbelt in the back. So when he woke up after the explosion, like the turret of the lab was pretty much missing, and the ramp was gone. So he immediately dragged himself out because his legs were all messed up, and all he could think about is, where's my rifle? Because most of us knew back over there is like when there's such a big explosion, it falls by an ambush. So you find your rifle and get ready to protect yourself. And that's pretty much what he told me. He was pretty much just dragging himself out of there till someone found him.
It's interesting. It's like your training still kicks in, right? Even after that explosion, you're thinking about your reflexes, like what's next? Possible ambush. Where's my rifle? I want to talk about your transition when you came back a bit later, but I am curious to know, like, so how hard was it just to go back to your day job? Because how much more time did you have in your tour at that point after Brad's?
He got blown up that New Year's Eve, and I did not leave Afghanistan until May 17th. So I still had a few months left, pretty much most of my tour. Going back to my day job, I think they put me on like a couple days off immediately till I got everything good going. And then it was kind of hard calling his family and his girlfriend to tell them what happened, but because when someone gets blown up overseas, they pretty much shut down all communication. So the family don't find out what happened before, like on Facebook or something, before the military tells them. But what our unit, I don't want to be a dick, but what our unit was doing, they were feeding the family, the wrong information. And I was the only one there that knew what was going on, so I had to find a cell phone to phone his family, and it was kind of hard because they already knew something happened, so they shut their phone off. And I had to find numbers from everywhere else to try to get a hold of them to be like, yeah. What I think the OC at the time was doing is telling the family that he was still in Kandahar, 2 or 3 days after, but I watched the plane take off to Germany, like the day after it happened. So I don't know why that was up, but it was pretty hard getting back into the grind after that. But he gave me a call, emailed me when he was pretty good. He was back in Canada, and everything pretty much went back to normal for the rest of the tour until I got home. So.
Is there another day that stands out for you, good or bad? Doesn't need to be a bad story.
Yeah, good day was probably when we beat the Americans in a hockey game over there, and there's people, and I think CBC News was there too, and people were emailing me like, "Oh, we seen you on TV at the hockey game." I was like, "That's perfect," because it was our day off, so we were all jumped on top of a sea can to watch because there was like thousands and thousands of soldiers there watching. And it was like right before the Olympics too. So we had a mock game with the Americans out there, and we pretty much spanked them. And then another day as we were coming back from, it's the day Canada won gold for hockey at the Olympics. We were coming back from a patrol, and there's an American soldier with a big posters, "Canada is not allowed in this base." That was a pretty good day. So we just stopped and talked to them a bit, and it's good.
What kind of things did you do besides like playing ball hockey to blow off steam when you had some time, some downtime?
A lot of Rock Band. We're pretty much going through Xbox 360 a week, and they'll just send it away, get it fixed, and send a new one in. It's like one a week because we're just burning them out, playing Rock Band. Every time you have downtime, Rock Band. And the Army, you know, most guys would tell you, when in doubt, rack out. So a lot of sleeping on your time off, because you never know when you're going to get another day to sleep. So.
What did you do for your leave?
I'm from St. Lucia in the Caribbean, and I flew back home. It was my first time going back in 10, 11 years, I think. So I flew back there for a few weeks.
And what was that like? Like you're going from a war zone to the Caribbean?
Oh, it was interesting because you get there and you see all your family, and they're like, "Oh, what did you bring me?" It's like, "I'm coming from a war zone. What do you want?" I don't have time to shop. But it was good. Like, reconnected with most of my family and stuff back there.
And then I guess the flip side is, what's it like when you know now you got to go back to the desert?
My family, again, were like, "You got to take this to your dad up here." I'm like, "I'm not going to be in Canada for another 6-7 months," because I landed in Afghanistan in October and my HLTA was in November. So yeah, it was interesting. It's like I spend most of my time there altogether.
So by the time you're ready to go, now you finish your tour, you're getting ready to go on. You're not on decompression yet, but what kind of, I don't know, what's your mental state after 6-7 months in Afghanistan?
Around that time, I don't really want to say, but we're pretty much drilling holes, as we call it. It's from a super bad movie. It's like, there's nothing to do, tour's over, might as well be drilling holes. But just a week before we went out, a British unit got stuck in the middle of a field somewhere, so we spent a couple days pulling them out. And that was a pretty fun experience working with the Brits out there. So we got to, I don't want to get in trouble for this, but trade most of our kit with the Brits the last few days. The mentality was like, you're still alert. You've been there for like 7 months, you know what you're doing. So just have a little bit of fun before you go home.
I mean, are you? Well, I'm curious. Were you ever superstitious? Did you ever? You know, you talked about hockey. Like, you know, hockey goalies have a certain routine before a big game, right? Did you personally have anything that you did that was superstitious at all before you go outside the wire?
No, I don't think so. The only thing we did every time we go outside the wire was just. Have you ever heard of 3-in-1 coffees?
Yeah. We
put like 3 of those in a bottle of water, and we did that every time we went out, and those kept you awake all day. It was pretty delicious. And when I got back home, I even tried finding 3-in-1s. Pretty much make your own Red Bull. That's the only thing we did pretty much.
What about music? Did some guys have told me they had a particular song that they would roll out to, for example? Did you guys have anything like that?
My crew, we always roll down to We Jammin' by Bob Marley. Because I shouldn't say anything about that, but it has to do with our electronic countermeasures. And every time someone turned it on in the back, I'll come over the radio and be like, hey, we're jamming, because you can tell when it's on in your headset, because it keeps buzzing the whole time. Your head is like right beside the antenna. So we always listen to that song. Or the platoon loved Small Town Girl. So every time I was with a different crew, they had their own different music playing. So it was coming from Alberta. I was the only one from Alberta in my platoon. They all were from BC. So it was pretty good getting together with them, going on patrol with different crews, and keeping my same job in the crews, and having the same jokes with them and all that. So it's good.
Yeah, like how close did you get to those guys in the course of that 6-7 months?
Oh, you did everything with them. Like, I just had one of my best buddies from the platoon, actually, who was here a couple days ago for my wedding. And yeah, so you keep in contact with everybody after. It's like, you get pretty close, because you do everything together. Like, you get tired of sometimes even seeing them. Like, I know our compound over, like, on base was like far from where we're staying, and most mornings when I was going on patrol, I'd rather walk than go in the van, because I was like, I'm going to be in the same vehicle as you guys for the next maybe 14 hours today, so I'll walk. Just take some time to myself.
So tell me about your last 24 hours in Kandahar. What was that like?
Well, my last 24 hours, most of the unit that was taken over for us were already on ground, and they were pretty much running their own patrols already. So I wasn't slated for anything. I think they try not to slate you for any patrols the last 24, 48 hours that you're there. So it was pretty much like packing, getting dust and everything out of all your stuff, and pretty much just giving the guys that were coming in all the stuff that we've collected over the last few months. They always wanted everything. I think some guy even took my stripper magnets that I got from Edmonton. It's like, okay.
And then you get on a plane and you go to Cyprus, right? So
Yeah, we flew from Kandahar Airfield and to Dubai, and I think everybody had a shower and handed their weapons and stuff in, and flew to Cyprus.
So what's Cyprus like? What are you doing there, like officially, and then sort of on your own time?
Well, in Cyprus, I don't know, Army closed down a 5-star resort for us and gave us extra money, which I think was a terrible idea. But in the mornings, you do some classes, like how to readjust when you get back to Canada and stuff. And in the afternoon, you get to do your own thing. I think most of the money was to do excursions and stuff, but the guys would just go to the bar. You haven't really had a good drink in a while, so you just want to go to the bar.
What did you want to do? What did you do?
There's a few guys from my platoon that was on the same Cyprus tour with me too, so we did a few things, did a couple excursions, but mostly spent it all at the bar or in the room puking.
How you said you've had some issues kind of readjusting. How valuable was it, do you think, that you just, at least you didn't come straight home, that you stopped in Cyprus for a couple days at least?
It's pretty valuable, but I think the classes they had were pretty much just a joke. Like, everybody who goes to classes is hungover in the mornings, and nobody's paying attention. Everyone's just doing their own thing. And I'm not sure if it was civilians. I don't remember if it was civilians or military running it, but it might have been civilians, because I never got in trouble, and I did a lot of stupid things in class. I didn't really pay attention to anything, because, okay, I'm not gonna. The main thing is, don't take a gun to a picnic. I'm like, I'm not gonna take a gun to a picnic. I know better than that. So, yeah.
And then you leave there and you come home. How were you received in Canada when your plane landed?
Oh, it was awesome, awesome. Well, I think when we hit the Canadian border, like 2 CF-18s escorted us to Trenton, and they were talking to us over the intercom or whatever. It was great. And then we had a few stops. I think we stopped in Trenton and then Winnipeg before we got to Edmonton. And we got on the bus. It was like 5, 6 in the morning, and it was kind of rainy. We're like, it's gonna be an easy nap, maybe trip back to base. No way. We got on the bus. Every single overpass, there's like people and firefighters with flags welcoming us home and all that. It was just awesome. Like, wow, I never really expected that, unless you came home in a box. But and then when we got to base, our CEO of the unit was there, and my buddy Brad was there to welcome us home. And then a few other guys from B Squadron in Edmonton that we all knew was overseas with us. They just ripped out early, and they were there to welcome us home. We just hung out with them for a little bit and did a little bit of paperwork. They gave us a room to sleep because we were flying for pretty much a full day. So, but nobody really slept. We left. We went straight to the airport, got a flight, and came to Medicine Hat.
And then what was it like? Was there any kind of reception organized here?
Oh yeah, when we landed here at Medicine Hat Airport, I guess our RSM was there and the OC of the unit was there. And then my parents were there too. But the other guy that went over with us that was from here, he never told his parents that he was coming home. So he just took a cab home and surprised them. So we offered him a ride because he lived like a block away from me, but he didn't want it. He's like, I'll take a cab. Okay. So
what's it? And then you said overseas, you made the decision that you were kind of going to be done with the military. This is going to be like have I got that right?
no, I wasn't really done then. When I got back to the unit, got back to regular work at the unit, is like a few people noticed that I wasn't like normal anymore. Like I wasn't the same guy that went overseas. And then after like 10,000 doctor's appointments, the Army decided it's time for release. So that was it for me.
So when they say you weren't normal, you weren't the guy that went away. What was different about you?
I was like angry, and most of the stuff that we did, I just was like, I don't want to do this. It's like this mentality that you've done the real thing. Why would you come back and practice to do it again? And I just wasn't really settled, or I think what they used was I wasn't mentally stable for my job anymore. And that eventually led to a medical release from the Army.
So do you agree with that assessment?
At then, I agreed with it, sure, yeah, but now I've been out for 2 years, I miss the Army. Like, I miss it really bad, and they only call me when they need something, so I guess it works both ways. I know where they are, I can come hang out, but it's coming back here and meeting new faces. None of the guys that were here when I left are here anymore, except for a few. So you just have no interest in coming back and meeting new people.
And like you said, right, you only went over with two guys. Brad's in Edmonton. Yeah. Where's the third guy now?
He's in Edmonton with Brad. They live together now. He lived here for like a year, and then he couldn't handle it, so he got out of the Army too. Like I think he was out before I was, and then he moved to Edmonton with Brad. Now they live together up in Edmonton. So I'm pretty much left by myself with the guys that I went over with. My platoon's from BC, so don't really see them much.
I've heard that's hard, right? Because I mean,
Oh, yeah.
the guys that if you come back with the Strathconas and you're still a Strathcona, right, and you're all together in Edmonton, for example, you got people that understand what you went through.
Yeah.
So how tough is that for you?
Well, you come here and you live in community. They don't know anything about you. You can't really share stories with any of your high school buddies because they don't know what went on overseas, and most of them don't even agree with it. So it's pretty hard not having like friends that I went over with here. So, but you just deal with it, I guess.
How do you stay in touch with the guys in BC?
Facebook, texting, Snapchat, which is, I have this guy that just came down for my wedding last weekend. It was a good time for sure, reconnecting with him, and he has this thing of every morning when he goes to take his morning glory, he sends me a Snapchat of it. So, yeah, I still keep in contact with most of them. There was a guy from my section. He was based in Stuffield for a year or two. Then he got sent to battalion in Edmonton, and we totally lost contact. Like, I haven't talked to him in such a long time, since he left, pretty much. So, it's pretty hard for some guys, but yeah, I guess. I don't know, you just learn to live with it. You watch a lot of war movies and try to relate.
So you just got married. Yeah. What do you tell your new partner about what you've been through?
Well, I try to keep a lot of stuff hidden from her, but sometimes that's even harder. We've been together since I got back, so she knows. And she knew me a little before I went overseas, so she knows that I've changed a lot. So she's awesome at working with me on that. So, and she's a nurse, so she knows how to deal with stuff like that. So.
Oh gosh, you didn't, but you knew her before, so it wasn't like you met her as part of your treatment.
No, I knew her before, but we never really hung out or anything till I got back.
So what do you think? You said you would 10,000 doctor appointments, or a bit of an exaggeration, but what was it like? I don't know. How do you feel you were treated by the system when you came?
Oh, I was just bounced around a lot. I had to drive to Prince Albert once a month for a 20-minute doctor's appointment, which I could just do it in Suffield. And then I had to go to Edmonton a few times. I pretty much had to see a doctor in Suffield every 2 weeks. Then the other week I'm in Prince Albert or Edmonton. It's like a full-time job going to doctor's appointments. So.
And were they paying you Class C the whole time?
Nope, I was just Class A. So every time I went out, I had to sign a pay sheet.
Have you figured out how much it might have cost you? I mean, were you out of pocket for this treatment?
Most of it was out of pocket, but the military tried covering what they could. Like, I had to take my own vehicle a few times, so they pretty much paid for the kilometers on that. But you have to pay for gas too, and you have to pay for a hotel, because it's Prince Albert. I don't want to do that all in one day. So, yeah, I got bounced a lot. I've seen like maybe 8 different doctors since I've been back.
I think like that's it for my questions. But is there anything that we haven't talked about? Any aspect of what you did or on coming home that you want to talk about? Anything more you want to say?
Not really. I don't know. I tried to go back right after, but that didn't happen. The military was like, nope. Well, the unit was like, no, pretty much, because they were tired of losing. I think the reason they were tired of losing people, because they send a crew to Afghanistan, they get back and they like release or go to Reg Force. So I don't think this unit sends anybody overseas anymore. I was the last batch.
Yeah, I know that a bunch of guys CT. Is that something that, did you think about going to the Reg Force? Is that?
Well, I wasn't gonna go to the Army, but I had a CT for the Navy. I wanted an easier job. But I canceled. I didn't want to really move away anymore. And my family all lives there, so it's like leaving your family again, which I had no problem with the first time, I guess. But
so, when you look at the whole experience, what is it that you miss the most about your time in the military or your time in Afghanistan?
Oh, all the traveling and all the friends that you meet. That's what I miss the world most. Like, I traveled a lot in my maybe year and a half in the Reg Force. So it was always, well, my whole military career we were gone. Like, every weekend we were driving to Edmonton or Wainwright to hang out with B Squadron, do training with B Squadron, I guess.
So what do you think about what when it comes to what you're looking at, the next thing in your life, when you're finished school, is there a way that you can sort of recapture some of that in a different trade or profession, or what are you thinking?
Well, the whole reason I was doing this is for private military, because I'll end up going back somewhere doing it with a gun in my hand, doing something. Because I've taken it on myself and just I've been to the States to do private security courses and stuff, and now I just got back and I was like, might as well just do criminal justice. Might be good if I become a police officer, but I doubt that's going to happen with my medical history. So.
But you're looking at like some kind of like a contractor kind of role. So what is it that you'd like to do?
I don't know. I just like carrying a gun. I'm so used to it that I like doing it all the time. I just want to have one. Guess I should move to America.
And when you tell your wife, your new wife, what you want to do, what does she say?
She pretty much kiboshes every plan. I'm surprised she actually let me go to the States and spend so much money taking courses. Like, she doesn't want me to live anymore. Like, if I was with her before I went to Afghanistan, I don't think I would be able to go. So
she's just the opposite.
Pretty much, yeah.
You want kind of like this life of adventure, and she
Yeah.
wants...
Well, she likes adventure too, but like vacation adventure. Like, we've traveled a lot, just the two of us, so, in the last few years.
Where'd you go in the States, and what did you do there?
I went to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and I did a personal security course with Trojan Securities there. Cost a pretty penny, but I think it was worth it.
And so what does that course allow you to do?
Just be a private military contractor, like a glorified bodyguard. So.
Have you applied for any positions like that?
Oh, I've applied for a few, but don't hear back. They only pretty much hire Americans. So. And I'm on a database where they send you like new jobs, openings around the world, so I don't know, I pretty much lost interest after a while. Like, I see an email about a new job, I look at it, I was like, oh, that could be nice. But I never really go ahead and do it. I think I might just end up working at the Medicine Hat jail as a jail guard. That's my backup plan. So.
So when you look at the whole experience, how do you think your time in Afghanistan affected or changed you as a person and as a soldier?
My time in Afghanistan pretty much made me grow up a little bit. Like, before I went over, I was like all over the place, party every night. But I still did that when I got back for a couple of years till now. Well, I try not to anymore, but my time in the Army was like the best. Like, I'm expecting twins in a couple months, and I was like, and it's 2 boys. I was like, as soon as you guys are old enough, you're going in the Army, so the Army teaches you how to be a man. So
you get a couple of big changes coming up.
Yeah, all in the last year. It's interesting.
How excited are you about that?
Excited? I don't know. I kind of wanted a girl so I can buy more shotguns, but 2 boys, I guess, buy more rifles to teach them how to shoot.
Is there anything we haven't covered you want to say?
No, I'm good.
Thanks very much.
No problem.